G'day everyone, welcome to a video by myself, Andrew DFT. And of course by the title below you can tell that this video is about the Fortnite Battle Royale suppressed pistol and how to make one. So originally I made this one here out of styrofoam. Now after I had built a few more props from the Fortnite series, I produced a SCAR tutorial, which a lot of you seem to struggle with, and then you asked if I could produce a tutorial for this one. And that's what I did. I also decided to produce this tutorial out of EVA foam as it's far more obtainable as a material than styrofoam. Unfortunately, a lot of you styrofoam guys might not be happy with that, but the same process, the same principles of creation apply. You're just swapping out some different techniques at different moments. So by the end of the tutorial, you should have something looking like this. Of course, right now you're seeing it in its raw state. You can still see the EVA foam, you can still see the cardboard cylinder, you can see everything how it is. Of course, when you go and paint it up, you should have something a bit more nicer. Of course, you can have it finished completely to your own desire, whether it's this default skin or another one to your own design is completely up to you. But the fact is, you can have a really nice looking prop from a very simple material very fast. Now of course, for those of you who struggled in the creation of the SCAR tutorial, this one is a much simpler and easier build, not only due to the scale, but the techniques are very similar, but it's easier to apply to a smaller design, as well as this requires far less intricate detail compared to the big guy. But let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so stationery, simple things, masking tape, pens, pencils, scissors, straight edges, rulers, Pokemon card if you want, I use it, hot glue gun and a heat gun. That's all you're going to need really for the construction, and of course your 1/2 inch foam, EVA. Now you're going to need to grab the templates, which of course you can get for free in the description box below. Go ahead, grab them, print them off, and start to break apart the template as I'm showing you here on screen. So simply pause the video and show and mimic where I'm cutting out all these individual segments so we can break it apart and start the creation on all the individual parts. First off, we'll grab the main bulk of the gun and we'll make it into 4 individual layers. You're going to do 3 of one template and 1 of the sides flipped. So that way we have a left and a right of the nice flat surface of the EVA foam. If you were to do all the same side, you would you'd have a problem. You'd learn really fast. Once you've got them all traced out into foam, we can go ahead with a nice sharp craft blade and cut straight down at a 90-degree angle, so that way we can separate all these free and have them nice and still standing. Go ahead with your bonding agent. You can use art cement, barge cement, hot glue, whatever you prefer. I simply use hot glue. It's easy, quick, affordable, and perfect for small projects like this. We're going to go ahead and glue in all these individual segments together so that way they're bound nice and tightly. Once it's set, you will notice that there is some imperfections. Of course, we're not going to get this 100% correct because we are using our hands. We're not instruments. We can't get it perfected. So what we're going to do is go ahead and identify where all these imperfections are. Once you've noticed them, you can go ahead and actually trim them off. I'm simply applying small little details of a line running all the way around the perimeter, and then I'll go with a nice sharp craft blade and actually slice all this off. Now we can start to actually break apart the individual layers within this main bulk of the gun. So what we'll do is we'll cut off this section of the template and apply it back on. Using it as a negative space template, we can apply this blue line, or this line doesn't have to be blue, and apply that in there so we know where to cut horizontally. We're also going to add a depth line about halfway through the foam, and now we're going to take the sharp craft blade and we're going to cut straight down on a 90-degree angle across that top horizontal line, flip the foam over and cut down again on a 90-degree angle, so that way this whole section comes out freely on a nice smooth cut. Now of course you can see there the edge is at 90 degrees, so we're not beveling it, we're just cutting this whole section out at like a terraced effect to give us the obvious 3D appearance. Moving on from there, we can of course start to highlight more detail inside this piece. So what we'll do is we'll of course cut off the section of the template here and now mark in of course this long horizontal line. Use a ruler or a straight edge to make sure the line is of course straight, because applying it straight from the paper might make it a bit wonky or not ideally the final piece we're looking for. So make sure you touch up that piece and we'll go ahead and start to break out even more detail. Now at this stage all we're doing is lining everything in. If you cut too early, you're going to make mistakes. We want to make sure all this is spaced out so we can see exactly where it's all going to go. Once we've laid out all these individual pieces, of course go back, make them sharp, make them crisp, make sure the lines are in unison, they're all parallel to each other. We'll then go ahead and add in the top horizontal line, which is going to be our main bevel indicating line. Once we've got that in, we can go ahead and add the depth lines, which will go pretty much 90% towards the inner side of the gun on that one exterior layer of foam. Mimic what you can see on screen and you shouldn't have a problem. Now this is important, you're going to need to change your blade now. It needs to be 100% sharp, so that way we cut through this on a beveled edge in one solid go and we get the most crisp line possible for this nice edge. This is a premier piece of showcasing. This is going to be the main piece you're going to see, of course, when you are looking at this gun, so you want it to be as perfect as possible. Now we're going to go add some detail to, of course, the sections we've laid out. We're going to go into this part here and actually bevel these sections out across that diagonal side. So what we're doing here is we're cutting straight down on a 90-degree angle, then coming back in on a 45. Once you've done that, we can go ahead and score all the lines we've applied here, simply cutting in just below the surface of the foam. It breaks it apart, so when we apply heat to it later, it separates, giving us the nice detail we're after. Now we're going to need to build up some additional layers. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab this section of the template, apply that onto a foam. Now we're going to cut out a piece that's 1 inch thick, and of course the same length as the template. You can then go ahead and mark in the designs, of course, from the template onto the side of the foam. Then using a pen, you're going to match up across the foam, across that inch depth, the horizontal lines. Now we're going to go ahead and cut these sections out. This is actually one of the hardest parts because foam is a bit of a annoyance when it comes to this kind of technique. With styrofoam, it's a breeze. But what we're doing here is we're cutting down on the diagonal to the point of the depth that we've indicated with the pen line, and then we're going to go ahead and slowly chunk these pieces out. Now this will be better if you have a Dremel. Of course, you can take this section out easy. If you're just using craft knife like me, you're just going to have to take your time and be careful. It might come off a bit rigid, but when we heat it up later, it should smoothen out and you shouldn't notice it too much. This is a piece of detail that goes on the bottom, so technically it doesn't need to be done 100%, but a sharp blade, patience, and precision is of course going to give you the better result in the end. Once it's clean and you're happy with it, we can go ahead and just simply glue it into position down the bottom. Now of course the next part is to build up the handle. We'll of course make it 3 layers thick, so grabbing that template and of course applying it onto the foam, being sure to flip it to give us a left and a right. Once we've cut it free from the main foam, we can go ahead and glue them all together, of course identifying where the issues or the imperfections are in the layers, and then doing your best to go ahead and clean it up with a sharp craft blade. We're now going to bevel the edges by simply grabbing the template and cutting the 2 sections free, adjusting and laying in that line around the perimeter where it needs to be, and then we can add a depth line about 3/4 of the way through the foam, and then using the craft blade go ahead and take it off using the beveling technique. You can see mine is cutting pretty nice. That's because I've got a nice sharp craft blade, so ensure you do as well. This is a premier piece that you'll always see, so of course having a look as best as possible is ideal. Once you've done that, simply grab your bonding agent and glue it right in the middle. Of course the main bulk of the gun is 4 layers thick. This sits at 3 layers thick, so therefore it should sit right in the middle. And that's it, part 1 done and dusted. Now this is a tutorial that will expand over 2 parts. Of course there's a lot of footage and a lot of things to get through. I didn't want to speed it up or jeopardize you guys not understanding properly what's going on, so I've split it into 2 parts so you guys can follow along in of course another video, which will be at the end of this one. But let's wrap it up. Of course, if you enjoyed the content, please give it a like. It lets me know that you enjoy it. And if you want to see something else, let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see. And of course, if you're new here, consider subscribing. Plenty of cool tutorials and other content on the way. I think you might like it. But that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and jump into part 2. Until the next one, guys, catch you later.